Hey everybody, it's the spooky month. You know what that means? We have to talk about scary things like death. So anyways, welcome back to another video. So in D&D, we have the very common archetype of the necromancer. It's one of the main 8 schools of magic within D&D. A necromancer is basically someone who has the ability to usually control or manipulate things like undead, whether they be zombies, skeletons, ghouls, ghosts, or the like. And we actually have quite a number of ways that we can do this within D&D in a way that is actually pretty fun and also breaks the game. Because, of course, this is my channel and this is what we do here. We break the game. And so I can already hear you in the comments saying, oh, well, Smiles, all we're going to do is just play a necromancer wizard, right? Kind of. You see, there's actually another option as well that we can use, and this specifically is through the Oathbreaker Paladin. You see, their channel divinity also allows us to control undead that we come across, very similar to the necromancer wizard's capstone. So when it comes to the big shtick of trying to play a necromancer, something that happens to the progression of every single necromancer player is inevitably, how do I create an undead army? It's just a natural progression of things. You find your first Necronomicon, and then you figure out, your animate dead spell, and then you figure out, Sun Tzu's Art of War. How many rations am I going to need to feed my undead army? Classic progression. And now, if you think that Animate Dead or all of those other spells are going to be the best way for you to create that massive undead army, well, then that's scarier than the entire premise of the season. I don't know. You see, if a big hotshot necromancer comes up to you and never says, Hey, listen, buddy, I earned my massive undead army by getting to a high enough level and spamming continuous spell slots to create and keep my undead under control. You shouldn't listen to them. It's a conspiracy. The top 1% of necromancers don't want you to know this, but they likely didn't earn any of their undead. You listen and I'll give you all the tips you need to gather your undead army and be the best necromancer any party has ever seen. And so the best and most critical way to do this, be just like those top 1%, is through extortion and milking those beneath you and those under your control for all they're worth. So the first thing you're going to want to do to get this started with is you're going to want to pick one of our 2 class options, as I was mentioning before. You've got either Oathbreaker Paladin or Necromancer Wizard. And so just to keep this in mind as well, the Oathbreaker's channel divinity comes online at 3rd level, whereas the Wizard's capstone ability comes online at 14th level. But as I was saying before, even though you're likely to have spells like Animate Dead, Finger of Death, to create zombies, skeletons, and the like, you see, the key way to really get that top tier upper crust 1% isn't through spells, but it's to extort the workforce, extort the common undead. And so now this is where it gets fun, because this is where we actually learn how to extort our undead. Because this is actually really important, because we need to know which undead we have to extort the most. So first up, we have the Mummy Lord. And yes, it's very cliche. A lot of people will want to go with this option for the fact that, simply put, it has the ability to cast Animate Dead. And at minimum with the Mummy Lord itself, that's like 9 undead that they can have with them, just with their spells alone. And they can also use free casts to dispel magic, which can be really useful for just having that nearby. And they're also not something you want to really get into with combat anyways. They can basically just turn things that they touch to rot. So, that's fun. So just keep in mind they have a pretty nasty legendary resistance, and their wisdom saves are also pretty high too. And even though at level 13 as an Oathbreaker you can finally get one of these under control, it's likely you're not going to be doing this for very long, because of course too, they can make the save once a day, and it's only really a matter of time until they break it. So now, moving forward from the Mummy Lord, the Greater and Lesser Death Dragons. These are creatures from Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, and they have some very fun abilities that will be great for our undead army. Their Cataclysmic Breath feature gives us the ability to create more undead than we could ever possibly need. The dragon exhales a wave of ghostly purple flames in a 60-foot cone. Each creature in that area must make a DC 18 dexterity saving throw, taking 45 necrotic damage on a failed save or half as much damage on a successful one. A creature dies if the breath reduces it to 0 hit points. Additionally, any medium or smaller humanoid killed by the breath's damage, as well as every corpse of such a creature within the cone, becomes a zombie under the dragon's control. The zombie acts on the dragon's initiative, but immediately after the dragon's turn. Absent any other command, the zombie tries to kill any non-undead creatures it encounters. So right off the bat, It's a very solid option because you have a death dragon, which is stupidly metal. Secondly, it also has a very poor intelligence and charisma save. And as long as you can burn through with their legendary resistances, then you're good. And now continuing on with our list, and honestly one of the best ones that we have here, we have the Dullahan. These guys have an interesting ability that we can abuse metaphorically and very literally, called Headless Summoning. If the Dullahan is reduced to 0 hit points, it doesn't die or fall unconscious. Instead, it regains 97 hit points. In addition, it summons 3 Death's Heads, one of each type, in unoccupied spaces within 5 feet of it. The Death Heads are under the Dullahan's control and act immediately after the Dullahan and the initiative order. And of course, too, this is an ability that recharges once a short rest. And you see, Death Heads are kind of a weird undead, but still a great creature to have as an army. And all you have to do is basically punch your Dullahan down to 0 every short rest, and slowly but surely build up your undead army. Because something interesting to note here is that it never actually says that the Death Heads that the Dullahans summon go away. So in theory, if you got a Death Head under your control and kept beating the tar out of it every hour on the hour, you could build up your own army of literally just Death Heads. Dullahans have low intelligence and kind of meh wisdom and charisma saves, but of course, they have a legendary resistance because everything in D&D has legendary resistances for some reason. Regardless, if this kind of undead seems like the perfect piece to your undead army, then keep your eyes open the next time you're playing in Venrikton's Guide to Ravenloft. Now moving on to a very good crowd favorite, the Wights. Also undead soldiers, tomb dwarves, etc. Admittedly, some of these guys seem to pretty strong copy-paste of their abilities throughout D&D stat blocks, so keep that in mind. So what they do specifically is they create zombies under their control after they slay a humanoid creature. Each wight can have up to 12 zombies under the control at the same time, and wights are fantastic options for some low-level necromancer power flex, and in this case, I think that actually makes them a really good choice for the Oathbreaker. Your ability comes online very early game in comparison to the wizard, and by the time you hit 4th level, it's very possible that your DM might actually start throwing a few wights at you. Wights have some pretty shoddy mental stats, and the best part, no legendary resistances. Your channel divinity shouldn't have much issue getting through and maintaining control over your wight and their undead. And I think if your party members know what's good for them, they'll likely help you get the wight saves to be even lower, to always ensure it never breaks out of your power, because that is a dangerous thing. The creatures that I've mentioned here are the ones that I simply think you're going to be able to control the most efficiently and also contribute the most to your growing little undead army. For example, there's another creature called the Atropol, which is this huge undead titan from Tomb of Annihilation. And I've seen a few different people include these into similar, like, making an undead army video. There's no way you're actually going to be able to keep one of these under your control for a long enough period of time, simply because of the sheer fact that, like, the stats on this thing are not going to let you keep it under your control whatsoever. Like, this thing has a 19 wisdom, it's got a 24 charisma, which is crazy because this thing looks like if you took a smoker's lung and fused it with a fetus. God left me unfinished! I don't know how this thing is charismatic, but we'll leave that up to the devs. But you see, the reason why people want to include something like this in an undead army building video is the sheer fact that it can just summon wraiths. I mean, hypothetically speaking, if you really wanted to play it this way, you could go and you could use true polymorph on yourself, turn into an Atropol, and then just keep mass farming wraiths until you have as many as you want. The problem with this issue is the sheer fact that this is just late level shenanigans. At this point, you can just cast Wish, and just wish for an undead army. So it kind of defeats the purpose of kind of everything that we're doing. So, just keep some of these things in mind. But anyways, now that we're getting a little bit further within the video, this is where I want to talk about a few other things to just keep in mind. So first of all, when it comes to undead, you need to have a safeguard for if the creature you're controlling dies. Because that is the creature that functions as the engine that keeps your whole army running. Because God forbid if that thing goes belly up and then your DM who's been tired of your necromancy shenanigans looks at you and is like, well, all of the undead aren't under your control anymore because you were controlling this undead and that one undead was controlling all of these other undead. So now that their leader's free, they're just going to go act on base instinct. And that base instinct is to slaughter everything around them. So establish a chain of command with the undead very early on. Basically be like, hey, you, my undead that is spawning all my other undead. Say if anything ever happens to me, you take orders from this guy or these other guys. You'll thank me later. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video because that is all the time that we have for today. And if you really did enjoy the video, then please like, comment, and subscribe for more stuff from yours truly. And in the meantime, keep smiling, keep scheming, and I'll see all of you next time.